When you're texting a guy, how do you know whether he likes you or not? What kind of text messages will he send you if he's really into you? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Hello, my name is Matthew Coast, and I am here on Helena Hart's channel. Which way is she? She's over this way. Helena Hart's channel. And today we're going to be talking about different types of text messages that a man will send you if he actually likes you. And at the very end of this, we're going to be talking about the most important thing to look for, far more important than these text messages. So stay tuned for that. Did you want to say something?
Love it. Yeah. By the way, you guys, Matt is the only person I asked to do the introductions. He's the only person I interview because I love his intros. They just kick everything off in such an amazing way. For those of you who aren't familiar with Matt, he is a very, very good friend of mine. He's the author of the brand new program, Irresistible Texts. It's totally new. First time you're talking about this that I've heard of. So you go ahead and click the first link in the description if you want to check it out. Close the live chat, click the title of this video, and it's the first link there. You can go check out his new program. And I'm super excited to get started. Is there anything you want to say, Matt, before we jump into this?
There's nothing specifically that I want to say other than I'm excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me, Helena.
Let's jump in. Well, first, is there anything you want to say in terms of why is this so important these days? It seems like everybody's texting now. The world is just so different than it was even, a decade or so ago. Can a woman really tell a man's interest level by the way he's texting her?
Well, you can definitely have some really good clues about whether he's into you or not, and it's important to know, right? A lot of women don't know because they grow up in people don't teach this stuff, right? They're not being taught it in schools, they're not being taught it by their parents, they're not being taught it by anybody. And so it's very important that you actually know what something looks like when somebody's into you and what it looks like when somebody's not into you. And that's why I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, what is that first text a guy will send when he really likes you? I actually don't know what you're about to share, so I'm excited to learn these myself.
Yeah. So the first one is actually, it's called the random text. And so a guy sends this to you because he wants to let you know that he's thinking about you, and he's not really sure how to say it, and he might not want to say that he's thinking about you because he doesn't want to come off as too soft or whatever. And so he'll send you some random thing about maybe like something that he's doing right now. So he might send you a message like, hey, I just saw this movie and this man jumped out of a car and this raccoon came over and kicked him in the nuts, and you're like, why is he... And I get this all the time, right? I have so many women that they'll like message me and they'll be like, hey, this guy sent me this text, and it's like some random text, and they're like, why would he send that to me? And it's always the same answer, is that he is thinking about you and he wants you to know and he wants to be connected with you, and so he sends you some kind of random text. So yeah, that's text message number one. Did you want to say anything about that?
Love it. I think it's great. So basically, if he's just kind of randomly letting you know what he's up to, he wants to stay in touch. He's thinking about you. He wants to connect, right? Do I have that right? Okay, yep, got it. Exactly. Love it. Let's move on to the next one.
All right, so text message number 2 is something I call checking on you texts. And so what he'll do is just ask something about something that's going on in your life. So let's say that you're taking an exam, you're in college or university, depending on where in the world you are, depends on how you call that. But let's say you're taking some exams or something, and he remembers something that's going on with you. Like he remembers that you had a big day at work, or that there's something coming up in your life, and he'll send you a text message just checking in on you about that one thing. And the reason that he does that is because he cares about you and he cares about what's going on with you in your life, and he wants to make sure that everything's going okay.
Love it. So if you have a presentation at work or a job interview or some exam you're taking, he'll want to know how it goes, right? You're on his mind and he wants to check in. I think that's such a good one. What's the third text a guy will send when he really likes you?
Okay, so the third text is the quick response text, right? So he responds really, really quickly. So he responds back very quickly because he's making you a priority in his life. So, right, you're doing things in your life and you're walking around and things are happening. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're at the grocery store, maybe you're hanging out with friends, and those things are immediately in your vicinity, but you still, like, as soon as you get the text message, you respond back. Why would you do that? Because you want to make that person a priority because they're important to you. And so if he responds back immediately, it says that you are a priority to him, right? Whatever's going on in his world, whatever's going on in his life, you are a priority, and he wants to get back to you quickly because he wants to be connected to you, because he likes you, because he wants you to know that he likes you, right? And again, like I said, at the very end, we're going to be talking about the one thing that is far more important than all of these other things. And so you want to make sure you stay tuned for that.
So yeah, I love what you mentioned with the last one. If he responds quickly, it's like he that's where his attention's going. You're a priority to him. So even if he's busy with something else, he'll, especially for a man, men are pretty single focused. So if he stops what he's doing to reply to you or to text you, that's a great sign that he's interested, right?
Absolutely. And you want a guy who makes you a priority in his life. And so it's important to know. It's important to know, right? And so the next one is something that I call the impressive text. And this is any time that he tries to impress you. And so he might end up talking about travel or cool things at work or his status or anything else that he talks about where he's trying to impress you with it. And this could even be like photos, right? He might send you a photo and it's kind of like a sneaky photo with his car in the background or something because he wants you to see his car. Anything like that, right? And to a certain extent that might be a little bit cringe, but at the same time, what it is him he wants you to think highly of him. That's what it says, is he wants you to have a good impression of him and you to think of him well because he likes you. He wouldn't do that if he didn't like you and want you to think of him well as well.
Love it. Sense? Absolutely. I think that's great. Yeah. So, and yes, this video you can just come back to the link where you're watching this now and it'll be saved. Yeah. So it might come across as maybe a little boasting, right? But it's like, he's trying to impress you. Right. I did like, he's a guy, if he's interested, he's going to want to kind of let you know some positive aspects about himself. So great thing to look out for rather than just immediately being annoyed and turned off, seeing it as a sign that he's trying to connect with you. He's trying to impress you. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. And so the next one is the initiation text. And so one of the biggest challenges that a lot of women come to me with is that they're doing everything, right? They're always initiating. They're always the one to start a conversation with the guy or something like that. And if they don't do that, if the woman doesn't send out that conversation, it's like the guy doesn't even try to have a conversation with them. And so when a guy starts initiating conversations, you know that he's investing, right? He's thinking about you. He wants to be connected with you. And so he's starting those conversations with you. And a lot of times they look like questions. Sometimes they might just look like a hi or a hey, what's up or something like that, right? And it's funny because I've had a lot of women ask me about this as well. They're like, yeah, why would a guy just send me a text where he says hi? And I'm like, because he's trying to reach out to you and be connected to you, and he wants to be connected with you, right? And so he doesn't know what to say, and so he just sends out whatever to be connected with you. And maybe he's seen other women do that before because women are notorious for sending a guy a hi text message as well, right? That doesn't say anything. So anytime he's trying to initiate some kind of conversation with you, it's a really good sign that he likes you, and you want him to do that, right? You don't want to be the one that's always initiating conversations with him.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah, I love it. I don't think I have anything to add there. You said it all. I mean, I talk so much about the importance of, seeing what a guy does all on his own, not being the one to constantly initiate and keep things going because you're afraid it's going to fizzle if you don't. So you guys know all about that already, right? Just based on my videos. So yeah, what's the next one, Matt?
Well, and the next one is exactly what you were just talking about, which is the keeps things going text, right? So he tries to keep things going with you, and sometimes it won't even make any sense, right? Because he just wants to stay connected. And if you think about it, these are things that all of us do, right? If you want to stay connected to a guy, you're trying to keep things going, right? You're trying to keep that conversation going. You're saying whatever in order to keep the conversation going. And so this is what a guy will do as well if he really likes you, is he will try to keep the conversation going. He'll continue to ask you questions. Maybe they won't make sense. Maybe he'll make a joke. Maybe he'll say something else. Maybe he'll change the topic, but he'll try to keep the conversation going because he wants to hold on to that connection that he's feeling with you as long as he possibly can. You know, obviously there's other things that could happen, right? Like he could be getting dating advice as well, which a lot of guys do. I mean, millions of men out there are getting dating advice as well, which could make it, you know, sometimes in dating advice, they'll be like, you know, just end the conversation first. Always be the first person to end the conversation. So it could be that he doesn't do some of these things because he's getting dating advice that tells him not to do it, which is why the last one is so important here. But yeah. So yeah, the keeping things going text. Does that make sense too?
Love it. I think it's great. I mean, if the man's the one to do that, it's how amazing does that feel as a woman? Then you're just feminine energy completely can relax because he's got it. He's keeping things going. You don't have to be up in your head strategizing or trying to figure out how you can keep things going, right? It's just like the best possible. Just makes everything so easy and effortless. So yeah, love that one.
Yep. And then the last number 7 is the last word text. And so this is when he makes sure that he has the last text message between the two of you. And so sometimes there'll be like an ending to a text message, right? Like you're saying something and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll see you then, right? And nothing needs to necessarily be said, right? Nothing has to be said, right? If you're like, okay, yeah, great, I'll see you then, he doesn't have to reply to you. Like that's not part of normal conversation that needs to be had. However, he decides that he wants to have that last message, right? Because he wants to make sure that everything's cool, everything's okay. He wants to make sure that you feel okay. He wants to make sure that he's still connecting with you and that you feel okay about the conversation that you guys have had. And so he'll send kind of this last word text to make sure that he's having the last word and that everything's okay and that you feel okay and comfortable with him.
I love that. Yeah. I was just going to say, I was thinking back to my own history of like, I can feel that like when you really like someone, think for everyone watching, when you really like someone, you wanting to have that last word, like, he says goodnight and you're like, good night. And then you want to send another, happy face emoji or a heart. Like when you feel that urge to have the last word, this is like the opposite of that. A man's feeling the need to like stay connected and have that last text. I think that's so great. I'm loving this. Oh, do you want to recap these? Or are you ready to share that top tip for knowing whether or not this guy likes you?
Let's go ahead and recap them real quick. So there's the random text, there's the checking on you text, there's the quick response text when he responds real quick, impressive text where he's trying to impress you with something, the initiation text where he starts the conversation, keeping the text going. So anytime he's trying to keep the text going with something and it might not even make sense, or the last word text. And then the last one, and this is the most important thing, and this by far is more important than any of these other things, because these things can happen, and all these text messages could happen, and a guy could still end up ghosting you, he could still end up losing interest in you, he can still end up pulling away from you, he can still end up not taking you seriously. And that is because there's one thing that is far more important than all of these things combined. And that is his investment in you. And so women who work with me know one thing over everything else. And that a man's investment in you is far more important than your investment in him. A lot of women come to me and they're like trying to do everything, right? They're trying to give to a man and show the man how much they love him. I even had a message the other day. I just did a live stream on my channel not too long ago where this woman was like, she's like, how can I show him how much I love him to try to bring him back into my life? And I'm like, that's not what brings him back into your life. Showing him how much you love him, investing in him, putting effort into him, initiating conversations, giving him gifts, doing everything, planning the dates, taking him out, spending money on him, driving far to see him, moving your schedule around to go and visit him. Those things do not make a man fall in love. And what makes a man fall in love is his investment in you, his effort and energy towards you. And so that is far more important than any of these text messages. Him moving towards you, him taking you out on dates, him investing in you. That is far more important than anything else, right? Is he trying to meet up with you?
I'm so glad.
Is he moving things forward? You know, does he want a real relationship with you? Don't get over invested in his text messages. Let him show you through his words and his actions that he is into you. And if his words and his actions are off, don't believe just his actions. Don't believe just his words. Believe the worst of the two. Always believe the worst of the two. And you want them to be in alignment, ideally.
That's the most important thing. That's what triggers this desire in him to move things forward and fall in love and commit to you forever. It's not about getting caught up in analyzing his every word on text if he's not investing and moving things forward in real life. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I just want everyone to rewind that part and watch it over and over. I think it's so important.